I'm Catherine Shelley. I had a stroke at 42. I was healthy, young and fit, so it was a bit of a shock. I was lucky though. They found a cause, which was a hole in the heart, and as a result of that I was able to get it rectified. I actually had my stroke when I was out running, which was again a bit of a shock, and I effectively collapsed in the street. I managed to get myself up again and ended up walking a mile with a completely numb leg and a completely numb arm, but still didn't believe anything was wrong with me. I spoke to my mother and she just kept looking at me strangely when I was talking, and I thought, she must have gone mad. Then my sister came, and after a few minutes she said, "You're talking rubbish." And I was like, "What?" Anyway, I then explained about my leg, and she said, "I think you've had a stroke. I'm taking you to hospital now." I was in hospital for a week, at which point they diagnosed a hole in my heart. After I was released, I was really left entirely to my own devices. Fortunately, I had my family looking after me as I was actually living overseas at the time. My GP was quite good and put me in touch with a cardiologist, and from then I managed to get myself a heart operation done. And after about 3 months, I went back to home, which for me was in Singapore.
My name is Abdul Shakur. I had a stroke 10 years ago. I was working in the city and at 11 o'clock in the morning, felt a bit drowsy. One of my colleagues drove me. We were going to take me home, but fortunately that she went to the hospital, Royal London, and we must be arrived about midday. At that time, couldn't talk properly. My mind was still telling one thing, but the words wasn't coming out. I waved at my colleagues, and spent all day with me, and it's time that she had to go home. And that was the last thing I remember. One of the things I assumed that is one of those things, I didn't know anything about stroke at all. There's not in our family, and I assumed that I'll be going to work tomorrow, next day. I'm going to the work, and I'm going to get my team and what work I have to go and share the work, what they need to do. Still, nobody told me what the stroke was and that sort of thing. But the second day I kind of realised that on the right side of my body I couldn't move on the right hand side. So I thought, well, it's one of those, my legs are going to sleep, I just wake them up and should be up and running.
Actually, I hadn't a stroke, I had a subarachnoid hemorrhage.
Okay.
And so my family, who were in Ireland and Germany and Australia and things like that came. Yeah. So I was, wow, I'm that popular. What's that about? Apparently, they had been informed that when I'm going to having an operation to do something about hemorrhage, that it's likely that I'll have a stroke, yeah, or that I would die. I wasn't aware of myself. I just had I wasn't able to move, and I got really scared about that. Of course, I didn't know about strokes. Nobody does until it happens to you, really. Now I'm a 5-year-old in my own home, and that has its own problems as well. When I came first, there were loads of people, and at that time I didn't want loads of people. I just wanted to relax, do my own thing, and let me chill out. And it's amazing if you have got your dressing gown and nightie on. They think, oh, she's got problems. We have to do something about that. But it's not like that. You're just tired. Everyone who had a stroke, you get really, really tired. It was good for me because I was an artist, so I couldn't talk, but I was able to draw what I need. It's amazing how much people can't understand what's people need.
It has improved. 10 years ago, there was nothing done. Now there's a lot of improvements we've done, but there's still a lot of work needs to be done. The current with the cuts and that sort of thing, I'm a bit worried about the stroke survivors and the families. How much support's going to be spent at the stroke wings, but the staff are got special trainings, which has been excellent, and just about the resources. I always felt that everything were given at the hospitals. The problem really happens is that when you go to your house after, and there's no sport, and now he's still not that much sport. My daughter was 10 at that time, and it's kind of hit me more with a 10-year-old daughter then affected me, and I felt that I used to go and used to do homework with her. Now it's my daughter is trying to talk me to talk.
My real concerns was, would I be able to think straight and keep focused? Would I be able to have conversations with people about complex subjects? And as an accountant, was I going to be able to do my analysis and look at numbers and see trends and understand what they meant? But probably ultimately, I was worried whether I actually had the strength to do it. Ever since my stroke, I'd had naps almost every afternoon, so would I actually have the strength to carry on? For me, getting back to work was one of the key parts of my recovery. I'd always worked, it was part of my identity, I enjoyed the challenges, I enjoyed the social aspect, so it was really key that if I got back, I'd really feel I'd recovered and was back to normal and that I hadn't been beaten. I was actually very lucky because I was working for one of the big banks in Singapore, and I guess they had the flexibility to say, okay, well, somebody else can come in and take over your day-to-day responsibilities, and I could just pick up odd projects that needed being done. Also, I guess my GP was good, and she said straight away, don't go back for take time off, do it very gently. Whereas I'd sort of assumed I would just go full time back into it. And I think when she first said 2 hours a day, I thought, well, that's ridiculous, but that was what I needed. What was probably interesting after a while was how I suppose I'd been moved slightly sideways in terms of my responsibilities, and I was completely unfazed about it. But 6-9 months later, I started getting more worried about the politics and the stress. And actually my partner Nick said, well, that's really good because that shows you're getting back to normal. So all those little things that niggle you, they're now niggling you, which means you're back to your normal self. So I think it was a really good part of my recovery. For me, going back to work, and then my other big love, which was running. In my view, the key benefits of going back to work for a stroke survivor is independence and also self-confidence.
I used to work for the London Labour Party, the London branch. I was the finance officer. Once, unfortunately, after the stroke, I couldn't carry the job. The problem is that, again, I can't read or write. And the finance officer used to do write accounts and that sort of thing. and reading is one of the issues still now, because I had to only read anything in small pieces. I can't read a whole book because on a page I would lose that. I would like to get employed. That's very difficult. When I had a stroke, I went to speech and therapy, and I took one of the speech and therapists and took her to job centre and said, look, one was that can support me, and also when the words would come out, she would say what to say. I went there, we made an appointment, and said, look, I want a job. I said, I'd do anything. Like I said, I work all my life, and all of a sudden I had a lot more time now, and that's killing me. And I said, look, I told him exactly what the problem was, and he said, well, don't worry, we'll definitely find a job for you. And I'm still waiting these 10 years. It's been very difficult. If you can't read or write, it is one of the biggest problems.
I still can't read or write. I'm so good now at asking. I just have to.
Yeah.
Before I would be, I shouldn't do this or shouldn't that. I just have to do it.
Yeah.
For my own survival, and actually for other stroke survivors' survival. That's why I've got into the London Stroke Action Council, because the things that make me militant now are amazing. I was never like that. I was. You'd have to check the vital signs with me. I was so laid back, but not now, because I can see that how people are being ignored. If you have a stick, you think there must be something wrong with the head as well, and just ignore that person. It's everyone's has the same story and has a different story. It's everyone is different, and the stroke is different. I had a massive stroke, so I'm really glad now that I'm doing what I do best, and I have an excuse that I don't have to do what I never did properly anyway. And actually it's interesting, because now I wouldn't be fighting the fight of stroke survivors. I wouldn't be trying to get an exhibition set up. I wouldn't be doing a calendar for the Stroke Association. So life goes on, you know. It's not a better life, but a different life.